Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin.
The Biltmore Estate's grand ballroom gleamed under crystal chandeliers, each one casting fractured light across tables draped in gold silk. The October evening brought a crisp breeze through the open terrace doors, carrying the scent of champagne and fresh roses. Asheville's elite had gathered for what society pages would call the wedding of the year. Sterling Duval, heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, marrying Victoria Ashford, daughter of a state Supreme Court justice. Maeve Callahan moved between the tables with practiced invisibility. Her black uniform fit perfectly, the white apron tied with precision. She kept her movements smooth and efficient, collecting empty champagne flutes and replacing them with fresh ones from her tray. 3 years of this work had taught her the art of being present, yet unseen. "More champagne at table 7, the catering manager whispered as he passed. Maeve nodded, adjusting her grip on the silver tray. Table 7 meant her father's table. She'd known this moment would come tonight, had prepared for it, even chosen this specific catering company because they'd gotten the contract for this wedding. The crowd parted as she approached. Roderick Callahan sat at the center of his usual circle of sycophants as senators, wife dripping in pearls, 2 hedge fund managers, and the mayor's chief of staff. Her father looked exactly as she remembered. Silver hair slicked back, custom Armani suit, gold watch catching the light. His laugh boomed across the space, the sound of a man who'd never doubted his place at the top of the food chain. "Told him the merger would go through regardless," Roderick was saying, gesturing with his champagne glass. "Sometimes you have to remind people who holds the cards." Maeve reached the table and began setting down fresh glasses. Her father's eyes passed over her without recognition, at first just another servant in his peripheral vision. Then something made him look again. Maybe it was the way she held herself, or the familiar angle of her jaw. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Well," he said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "if it isn't my biggest disappointment." The conversation died. The senator's wife shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "Roderick," she said quietly, "perhaps we should—" No, let me introduce you properly." He gestured at Maeve with his glass, champagne sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "This is my daughter, Maeve. Harvard MBA, top of her class, and now look at her, clearing tables." He turned to the hedge fund managers. "She's just a maid, took the wrong path in life. Pity." The men chuckled nervously. One of them, younger than the rest with cocaine-bright eyes, added, "Guess not everyone can handle the pressure of real business." Maeve set down the last glass with perfect control. Her hands didn't shake. Her expression remained neutral, professional. She'd practiced this moment in the mirror 100 times. "Will there be anything else, sir?" she asked, her voice flat and empty of emotion. Roderick waved her away like he was dismissing a fly. "That's all you're good for now, isn't it? Running along when told." She turned and walked away, feeling their eyes on her back. The senator's wife murmured something about family troubles being so difficult. The younger hedge fund manager made a joke about the help knowing their place. Roderick's laugh rang out again, louder this time, performing his indifference for his audience. Maeve returned to the service station near the kitchen entrance. Harlow Gaines stood there, mixing drinks with violent precision, her purple-streaked hair tucked under the required catering company cap. "That sounded rough," Harlow said, not looking up from the Manhattan she was constructing. 3 years of rough," Maeve replied, checking her watch. 15 more minutes." Harlow's hands paused for just a moment. "You sure about this? Once it starts, there's no stopping it." "I'm sure." Maeve picked up another tray of champagne. "My whole life led to this moment." Across the room, the best man had risen for his speech. Thomas Whitmore, Sterling's fraternity brother and fellow Meridian Corp executive, tapped his knife against his crystal glass. The room gradually quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas began, his voice carrying that particular confidence of men who'd never worked for anything they had. "I've known Sterling since our days at Duke, and I can honestly say I've never seen him happier than he is today with Victoria." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Maeve positioned herself near the back wall, tray balanced on one hand, watching everything. "Sterling and I have been through a lot together," Thomas continued. "Business deals, hostile takeovers, and more golf games than I can count." Laughter from the crowd. Roderick raised his glass in acknowledgement Sterling was his protege, groomed to take over parts of the Meridian Empire. "But what really makes Sterling special," Thomas went on, "is his loyalty to his friends, to his family, and especially to the company that's given us all so much. Meridian Corp isn't just a business, it's a family. And today, we celebrate that family growing even stronger." Maeve glanced at her watch again. 5 minutes. "So please, everyone, raise your glasses to. Holy shit, she's on the news." The shout came from a table near the dance floor. A young man in his 20s, probably someone's nephew, was staring at his phone with his mouth hanging open. Then he pointed at the massive television screen mounted in the corner installed so guests could watch the college football scores. The local news had interrupted the game. The anchor's serious face filled the screen, and below her the breaking news banner read, "Whistleblower exposes Meridian Corp's $2 billion fraud scheme." The room went silent except for the television's audio flooding the space. "We're bringing you breaking news tonight. Federal authorities have confirmed they're investigating Meridian Corporation following explosive revelations from a whistleblower. The allegations include embezzlement of pension funds, offshore tax evasion, and systematic fraud spanning over a decade." The camera cut to a different angle, and Maeve's face filled the screen. It was her official Meridian Corp photo from 3 years ago, professional, confident, unsmiling. The whistleblower has been identified as Maeve Callahan, a former senior analyst at Meridian Corp, and, in a shocking twist, the daughter of company CEO Roderick Callahan. The crash of breaking glass cut through the stunned silence. Roderick's champagne flute had slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Golden liquid spread across the white stone like spilled secrets. Every head in the room swiveled between the television and Maeve, who still stood against the back wall, tray perfectly balanced, expression calm. The news continued. "Ms. Callahan has reportedly provided federal investigators with thousands of documents, recorded conversations, and detailed financial records. The FBI raided Meridian Corp's headquarters just minutes ago. We're told arrests are imminent." Sterling Duval shot to his feet, his face flushed red. "Turn it off. Someone turn off the damn TV." But no one moved. They were all transfixed, watching their world crumble on live television. The news anchor continued. "Sources indicate Ms. Callahan spent 3 years gathering evidence after she was terminated from Meridian Corp under controversial circumstances. She claims she was framed for embezzlement after discovering the fraud and reporting it internally." Victoria, the bride, stood frozen in her white designer gown, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Her father, the judge, had gone pale as paper. Thomas Whitmore, still holding the microphone from his speech, dropped it. The feedback squeal made everyone wince. "According to our sources," the anchor said, "the fraud involves a complex network of offshore accounts, shell companies, and falsified pension reports affecting over 30,000 retirees. The estimated losses exceed $2 billion. Roderick finally found his voice. "It's lies," he roared, spinning to face the crowd. "All of it. She's mentally unstable, everyone knows that. She was fired for stealing." But the guests were already backing away from him, creating space like he was radioactive. Phones were coming out everywhere. The senator's wife was making a rapid exit toward the terrace. The hedge fund managers were frantically typing on their phones. probably checking their own exposure to Meridian. The television wasn't done. We go now to Jennifer Rodriguez, reporting live from Meridian Corp headquarters. The screen cut to chaos FBI agents in windbreakers carrying boxes out of the building. Employees gathered on the sidewalk looking shocked, police cars with lights flashing. "That's right, Tom," the reporter said. "I'm here at Meridian Corp, where federal agents have been removing documents and hard drives for the past hour. We're told several senior executives are being sought for questioning. The company's stock has been suspended from trading, and early estimates suggest it will be worthless by morning." Maeve set down her tray on a nearby table and walked toward the center of the room. Guests parted before her like she was Moses at the Red Sea. Some were recording on their phones. Others whispered frantically to each other. The wedding photographer, sensing the story of a lifetime, began snapping pictures. "You want to know the truth?" Maeve said, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "Let me tell you about the wrong path I took." Roderick started toward her, but Sterling grabbed his arm. Federal investigators would be looking for him. Now any violence would only make things worse. 3 years ago, Maeve began. I was senior analyst at Meridian Corporation. I'd worked there since graduating Harvard. Yes, top of my class, as my father loves to mention. I believed in the company. I believed in him. She looked directly at Roderick. His face had gone from red to purple. "I was running a routine audit on our pension fund allocations when I found discrepancies. Small at first, a few thousand here and there. But the more I dug, the more I found. Money moving through offshore accounts in the Caymans, then to shell companies in Delaware, then simply vanishing." The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. Even the catering staff had stopped pretending to work. 30,000 retirees, Maeve continued. Teachers, firefighters, nurses, people who'd worked their whole lives believing their pensions were safe. And my father was stealing from them to fund his lifestyle. This wedding alone probably cost more than most of those retirees will see in a decade. "Shut up," Roderick roared. "You don't know what you're talking about." I knew exactly what I was talking about. That's why I brought it to you first, wasn't it? I came to your office with the evidence. I thought you'd want to fix it, make it right. I was so naive. She pulled out her phone, swiped to a recording, and held it up. Her father's voice filled the ballroom. "You stupid girl. You think this is about right and wrong? This is about power, about survival. Those pensioners, they're sheep. They exist to be sheared." Her own voice responded on the recording. "Dad, this is illegal. We have to report. We don't have to do anything except make this problem go away. And if you're the problem, then you go away too." Maeve stopped the recording. 2 days later, I was arrested for embezzlement, charged with stealing the very money I'd tried to report. My father had already prepared a paper trail, pointing to me. Bank accounts in my name I'd never opened. Forged signatures on transfer documents. Even a fake gambling problem to explain where the money went. Victoria's father, the judge, stepped forward. "Ms. Callahan, these are serious allegations." "They're not allegations anymore, Your Honor. Check your phone. I'm sure you have several missed calls from the federal prosecutor's office. They'll want to know about those interesting deposits to your campaign fund from Meridian's Political Action Committee." The judge's hand went to his pocket, then stopped. His face told everyone what they needed to know. "I lost everything," Maeve continued. "My job, my apartment, my savings, all frozen during the investigation. My mother, remarried to her rancher in Texas, was so ashamed she cut off contact. Every friend I had in this world turned their back on me because Roderick Callahan said I was a thief." She looked around the room, making eye contact with several people who had once been her friends, colleagues, even lovers. They all looked away. But the beautiful thing about losing everything is that you have nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you can become very, very patient. Harlow appeared at her side, having abandoned the bar. She handed Maeve a glass of water and stood there like a bodyguard, all 5'2" of her radiating menace at anyone who might approach. "For 3 years," Maeve said, taking a sip of water, "I've cleaned houses, scrubbed toilets, washed dishes, served champagne to people who used to call me their equal. And every single day I gathered evidence. Every single day I got closer to this moment." The news was still playing on the television. Now they were showing Meridian's stock price chart, a red line plummeting toward zero. "She's lying," Roderick shouted, but his voice cracked. "This is all fabricated. She's trying to destroy me out of spite." "Spite." Maeve laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. "You haven't seen spite yet. This is justice. Spite comes later." The ballroom erupted into chaos. Half the guests were trying to leave, pushing toward the exits in their designer gowns and custom suits. The other half seemed frozen, unable to look away from the train wreck unfolding before them. The wedding staff stood uncertain, unsure whether to keep serving or start cleaning up. Sterling Duval grabbed the microphone from the floor, where Thomas had dropped it. "Everyone calm down. This is obviously some kind of mistake. A misunderstanding that will be cleared up." "The only thing getting cleared is your future, Sterling," Maeve interrupted. "Check your phone. I sent you something special 5 minutes ago." Sterling pulled out his phone with shaking hands. His face went white as he read. Victoria snatched it from him. "What is this?" she demanded. "Sterling, what are these account numbers?" "Those would be his personal offshore accounts," Maeve said helpfully. "The ones he's been using to skim from the pharmaceutical division. Did you really think marking cancer drugs up by 3,000% wouldn't leave a paper trail?" Victoria threw the phone at Sterling's face and stormed off, her wedding dress train sweeping champagne glasses off a table in her wake. Roderick had recovered some of his composure and was stalking toward Maeve through the crowd. People scrambled to get out of his way. His face was twisted with rage, 60 years of carefully maintained control finally cracking. "You ungrateful bitch," he snarled when he reached her. "I gave you everything. The best schools, the best opportunities. The best frame job," Maeve added calmly. "Don't forget that part." His hand twitched like he wanted to hit her. Several people had their phones out, recording everything. He managed to stop himself, but barely. "You think you've won something here." Roderick leaned in close, his breath sour with champagne and fury. "You have no idea what you've started. The people I know, the connections I have, you've just signed your own death warrant, Maeve." Maeve smiled. It was the first genuine smile she'd worn in 3 years. "I signed yours 3 years ago," she said. "It just took this long for the ink to dry." "Mr. Callahan." A new voice cut through their confrontation. "I'm going to need you to step back." They turned to see a man in his 40s, average height, unremarkable suit, holding up a badge. Deputy U.S. Attorney Lennox Creed stood there with 2 FBI agents flanking him. "You're under arrest," Creed said, nodding to the agents who moved forward with handcuffs. "This is ridiculous." Roderick backed away. "You can't arrest me at a wedding. I haven't done anything. She's the criminal. She's the one who stole." "Mr. Callahan, you have the right to remain silent," one of the agents began as they grabbed his arms. "Get your hands off me. Do you know who I am? I own judges. I own senators." "That's interesting," Creed said mildly. "Would you like to elaborate on that?" "Actually, wait, let me read you your rights first." As they cuffed Roderick, more agents appeared, moving through the crowd with purpose. Thomas Whitmore tried to run, but tripped over a chair and was caught by the terrace doors. 2 other Meridian executives were detained near the bar. Sterling had disappeared, but Maeve could hear shouting from the parking lot they'd caught him at his car. "Ms. Callahan," Creed said, approaching her. "We'll need you to come to the federal building tomorrow for a formal deposition." "Of course," Maeve replied. "I'll bring the rest of the files." "The rest?" Creed's eyebrows rose. How much more is there? Oh, Agent Creed, what I gave you was just the appetizer. Tomorrow you get the main course. He studied her for a moment. You know, when you first contacted me 6 months ago, I thought you might be another disgruntled employee with a grudge and a few emails. And now I think you might be the most thorough person I've ever met, and possibly the most patient. When someone destroys your life, Maeve said, watching the agents escort her father toward the exit, patience becomes a survival skill. The crowd parted as they led Roderick past. Some people took pictures. Others turned away, already distancing themselves from the scandal. The senator's wife was on her phone, probably with her lawyer. The judge had disappeared entirely. This isn't over. Roderick shouted as they dragged him past Maeve. You hear me? This isn't over. You're right, Maeve called after him. It's just beginning. After the agents left with their arrests, the ballroom felt hollow. Most guests had fled, leaving behind overturned chairs, abandoned champagne glasses, and a wedding cake that would never be cut. The band had packed up without playing a single song. Victoria's bouquet lay trampled on the dance floor. Maeve sat at one of the empty tables, finally allowing herself a moment to breathe. Harlow appeared with 2 glasses of the expensive scotch that had been reserved for the wedding party. Figured we might as well, Harlow said, sliding one across to Maeve. Not like anyone's going to complain about the bartender helping herself now. They clinked glasses and drank. The scotch burned, but it was a good burn, the kind that reminded you that you were still alive, still fighting. You know they'll come after you, Harlow said. Not legally, that ship has sailed, but Roderick has connections. Real nasty ones. The kind that don't care about FBI protection. I know. Maeve took another sip. I've been preparing for that too. How does someone prepare for hired killers? By making sure killing me would cause more problems than keeping me alive. Maeve pulled out her phone, showed Harlow the screen. This is set to upload everything to 20 different news outlets and social media platforms if I don't enter a code every 12 hours. Not just the financial crimes, everything. The affairs, the bribes, the blackmail material Roderick kept on his supposed friends. If something happens to me, I take down half of North Carolina's elite with me. Harlow whistled low. Mutual assured destruction. Nice. It's the only language these people understand. Lennox Creed returned, having seen the other agents off with their prisoners. He pulled up a chair without asking, looking tired but satisfied. The wedding photographer gave us his memory cards, he said. Going to make for some interesting evidence photos. The CEO of a major corporation getting arrested in his Armani suit, surrounded by champagne and gold decorations while his victims are eating cat food to survive. Make sure that makes it to the media, Maeve said. I want that image on every front page tomorrow. Already done. Creed loosened his tie. You know, I have to ask why tonight? Why the wedding? Because it was perfect, Maeve replied. Everyone who mattered would be here. Everyone who looked the other way, who chose comfort over conscience, who knew something was wrong but did nothing because they were getting their cut. I wanted them all to see it happen. I wanted them to know that their world, this golden bubble they live in, it's made of glass. And I'm the rock that shatters it. Poetic, Creed said. Also brilliant. The media coverage alone will ensure a conviction. No jury is going to sympathize with a man who stole from pensioners while spending millions on his protégé's wedding. That was the idea. There's something else, Creed said, leaning forward. We've been looking into your termination from Meridian. The embezzlement charges against you. They're going to be formally dropped tomorrow, and the prosecutor who pursued them is under investigation. Turns out he received some interesting payments from your father around that time. Maeve felt something loosen in her chest, a knot she'd carried for 3 years. Additionally, Creed continued, there's the matter of wrongful termination, defamation, false prosecution. You could sue Meridian's estate for millions. I don't want their money. Maeve said. Give it to the pensioners. Creed blinked. All of it. All of it. I want those people made whole. That's what this was always about. Harlow laughed. You're either the noblest person I've ever met or the craziest. Why not both? Maeve raised her glass again. They were interrupted by a woman in her 60s approaching their table. She wore a simple navy dress, the kind you'd buy off the rack at a department store. Her face was weathered but kind, with deep laugh lines around her eyes. Excuse me, she said. Are you Maeve Callahan? Maeve tensed, but the woman's hands were empty, her posture non-threatening. Yes. My name is Dorothy Chin. I was a nurse at Memorial Hospital for 35 years. I retired 2 years ago. Her voice wavered slightly. Last month, I found out my pension had been cut by 70%. They said there were funding issues. I was going to lose my house. Maeve stood up, facing the woman directly. Dorothy Chin took her hand. Thank you. Thank you for fighting when no one else would. Thank you for remembering that we matter. Before Maeve could respond, Dorothy hugged her. It was brief but fierce, the embrace of someone who'd been drowning and just found solid ground. There are 30,000 of us, Dorothy said, pulling back with tears in her eyes. 30,000 people whose lives you just saved. Don't ever forget that. She walked away before Maeve could say anything. Well, Harlow said after a moment, guess that answers the noble versus crazy question. Later that night, after the ballroom had been cleared and the police tape had been stretched across Meridian's headquarters, Maeve sat in her small apartment with Harlow and Creed. They'd ordered pizza, somehow fighting corruption worked up an appetite. I still don't understand how you did it, Creed said, working on his third slice. 3 years of gathering evidence without anyone noticing, without any resources. How? Maeve leaned back in her chair. You want the whole story? We've got time. She took a breath, organizing her thoughts. After the charges were dropped and I was blacklisted from every real job in the state, I had 2 choices. Give up or get creative. I chose creative. The Maid thing, Harlow said. That was genius. It was necessary. Rich people don't see the help. We're furniture that moves, nothing more. Do you know how many important conversations happen while someone's cleaning the room? How many documents get left out because surely the maid won't understand what she's looking at? She got up, went to her closet, and pulled out a banker's box. Inside were hundreds of USB drives, each labeled with dates and names. My first break came when I got hired to clean the house of Mitchell Graves, Meridian's CFO. Every Wednesday like clockwork. He had a home office, told me to dust but not touch anything important. She held up a USB drive. Took me 3 weeks to clone his hard drive, transferring files in chunks while he was at his golf game. That's illegal, Creed pointed out. You can't use it in court, Maeve corrected. But it told me where to look for evidence you could use. Banking records, SEC filings, board meeting minutes. I knew what existed and where before you ever got a warrant. Jesus, Creed muttered. Then there was Jennifer Huang, head of human resources. She liked to day drink and complain about her job while I cleaned. Told me all about the special employees who never showed up but still got paychecks. Ghost employees feeding money back to executives. Maeve pulled out a notebook, pages covered in her neat handwriting. Every conversation, every overhead phone call, every document I saw. I wrote it all down. Times, dates, names, building a map of the corruption. But the recorded conversations, Creed said. How did you get those? North Carolina is a one-party consent state, but you weren't party to those conversations. Maeve smiled. No, but I was party to conversations with the people involved. When Mitchell Graves propositioned me one day, offering me money to be his mistress, I recorded him bragging about all the women he'd bought with embezzled funds. When Jennifer got drunk and called me to complain about her boss, she admitted to falsifying employment records. All perfectly legal recordings. And they just told you these things. They told the maid, the nobody, the nothing who cleaned their toilets and would never dare speak up because I needed the job. Her voice hardened. They created their own blindness. Harlow raised her beer. To the invisible women who see everything. But the Cayman accounts, Creed pressed. How could you possibly access those? That, Maeve said, was where I got lucky. Remember State Senator Patricia Morse? The one who just resigned. The very same. I cleaned her campaign office twice a week. She was having an affair with my father. I found that out from some very explicit text she accidentally left up on her computer. But more importantly, she was sloppy with her passwords. Wrote them on sticky notes hidden under her keyboard. No, Creed said. Yes, including the password for the laptop where she kept records of all the bribes she'd taken, which led me to the account numbers Roderick had used to pay her, which, with some creative social engineering and a very helpful bank teller in the Caymans who thought I was from the IRS, got me transaction records. That definitely wasn't legal. Prove it, Maeve said simply. The bank teller doesn't exist anymore. He moved to Costa Rica last month with a nice retirement bonus from an anonymous benefactor. The call records were destroyed. All you have are the documents that mysteriously appeared in your office. Creed stared at her. You planned all of this. Every detail. Every detail, she confirmed. I knew which judges would sign warrants, which FBI agents were clean, which journalists would run the story. I knew when Roderick would be most vulnerable, when his allies would be gathered in one place, when the impact would be maximum. 3 years of planning for one night. No, Maeve corrected. 3 years of planning for justice. Tonight was just the beginning. She pulled out one more item from the box, a hard drive marked with today's date. What's that? Harlow asked. Phase 2, Maeve said. See, Meridian wasn't operating alone. They had partners. Other companies, other executives, politicians in 3 states. The infection goes deep. How deep? Creed asked, though he looked like he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Remember the governor's infrastructure initiative? The one that was supposed to rebuild roads and bridges? 60% of that money was diverted to shell companies owned by Meridian's partners. The safety inspections for the nuclear plant? Falsified by inspectors on Meridian's payroll. The water treatment facilities that were supposed to be upgraded? Never happened. The money went to yacht purchases and Swiss bank accounts. Creed had gone pale. If this is true, it's true, and it's all on this drive. Names, dates, amounts, account numbers. Enough to keep your office busy for the next decade. Why didn't you include this in the original leak? Because I wanted to see who would run, who would try to cover their tracks, who would reach out to whom. She smiled coldly. I've been monitoring their communications all night. Panic makes people sloppy. They're creating new evidence, even as we speak. Her phone buzzed. She checked it, and her smile widened. What? Harlow asked. My mother, asking if I need a lawyer. Maeve deleted the message without responding. 3 years of silence, and now she wants to help. Will you talk to her? No. She made her choice when she believed Roderick over me. When she told everyone in Texas that her daughter was a thief and an embarrassment. There's no forgiveness for that. That's cold, Creed said. That's survival, Maeve replied. Forgiveness is a luxury I can't afford. Every person who turned their back on me, who chose comfort over truth, they're all complicit. They don't get to return now that I've won. Dawn was breaking over Asheville when the next wave hit. Maeve stood on the balcony of her apartment, watching federal agents swarm the Meridian building 6 blocks away. The local news had been running coverage all night, but this was different. This was the kill shot. Her phone rang. Roderick's lawyer, Paul Brennan. Ms. Callahan, he said without preamble. Your father wants to make a deal. No deals. You haven't heard the offer. He's willing to admit to lesser charges, serve maybe 5 years, and in exchange. No deals, Maeve repeated. He has resources you don't know about. Hidden accounts, connections who could make your life very difficult. You mean the Cayman account with the routing number ending in 4792? Maeve asked casually. The one with $38 million that he thinks is his emergency fund. Silence on the other end. Tell him to check his balance, Maeve said and hung up. Harlow emerged from the guest room yawning. Did you sleep at all? Couldn't. Too much happening. What's happening now? The twist, Maeve said, pulling up her laptop. Want to watch Roderick discover he's truly broke. They sat on the couch as Maeve pulled up a secure connection to the Cayman Bank system. She'd maintained access through a backdoor she'd created months ago. The account balance showed $0. When did you? Last night, while everyone was being arrested. The wonderful thing about international banking is that it never sleeps. A few keystrokes, the right authorization codes that I'd gathered over the years, and the money started moving. Moving where? First to a trust I'd established in Delaware, completely legal, by the way. Then distributed to 30,000 individual pension accounts. Every single person Roderick stole from just got a direct deposit. Not enough to make them whole, but enough to help. Harlow's phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Holy shit, Maeve. It's all over social media. People are posting screenshots of deposits hitting their accounts. Christmas miracle, they're calling it. Maeve's phone rang again. This time it was Roderick himself, calling from federal detention. You have a collect call from Ridgefield Federal Detention Center, the automated voice said. Will you accept? Yes. You fucking bitch. Roderick's voice exploded through the speaker. That was my money. My safety net. Actually, it was never yours, Maeve said calmly. It was stolen money. I just returned it to its rightful owners. You don't understand what you've done. Without that money, I can't pay for a real lawyer. I can't make bail. I can't. You can't buy your way out, Maeve finished. For the first time in your life, you're going to face consequences like everyone else. I'm your father. You were my father. You stopped being that the day you chose money over me. The day you framed your own daughter to protect your empire. Everything I did was for the family, for our legacy. Your legacy is 30,000 people who nearly lost everything while you drank champagne and bought politicians. Your legacy is a failed company and a federal prison cell. Maeve, please. She hung up. The apartment door knocked. Creed entered, looking haggard but excited. We found more, he said without greeting. Based on the drive you gave us, we've uncovered a whole network. 12 more companies involved, 48 individuals. The Attorney General is calling it the largest corporate fraud case in U.S. history. Good. There's something else. The board members who weren't arrested, they want to meet with you. Why? They want to offer you Roderick's position. CEO of Meridian Corp, or what's left of it. They figure you're the only one who understands the company well enough to salvage anything. Maeve laughed. It started small, then grew until she was almost crying from it. They want me to save the company that destroyed me. The salary would be 8 figures. Full reinstatement. Public vindication. No. Just like that. Let it burn, Maeve said. Let it all burn to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. I don't want to save Meridian. I want it to be a cautionary tale that business schools teach for the next 100 years. Then what will you do? Maeve looked at Harlow, who grinned back. We're starting our own firm, Maeve announced. Consulting services for corporate fraud detection, helping other whistleblowers navigate the system, making sure this kind of thing gets caught early next time. You want to make a career out of destroying corrupt companies. Someone has to. Creed shook his head, but he was smiling. You know what? After everything I've seen, I think you'll have plenty of business. The media circus lasted weeks. Every major outlet wanted Maeve's story. She gave exactly one interview to a financial journalist known for her integrity and laid out the facts without emotion or embellishment. The facts were damning enough. Sterling Duval was arrested trying to flee to Switzerland. His new wife had already filed for annulment. The judge, Victoria's father, resigned in disgrace when his connections to Meridian were exposed. Thomas Whitmore, the best man, turned state's witness and provided evidence against 6 other executives in exchange for a reduced sentence. The senator's wife, Patricia Morse, was indicted on corruption charges. Through it all, Maeve kept working. She and Harlow rented office space in downtown Asheville, nothing fancy. Just 2 rooms and a reception area. They called it Glass House Consulting, and within a month, they had more clients than they could handle. Another one, Harlow said, reading from her computer. A pharmaceutical company employee thinks her boss is falsifying drug trial results. Send her the secure contact form, Maeve said, reviewing financial documents for another case. We'll evaluate next week. A knock at the door interrupted them. Maeve looked up to see her mother standing in the doorway. Fiona looked older, grayer, worn down by shame and distance. She clutched her purse like a shield. Maeve, she began, I know you probably don't want to see me. You're right. I don't. Please just let me explain. When Roderick called and told me what you'd supposedly done, I was shocked. I couldn't believe my daughter would. That's exactly the problem, Maeve interrupted. You couldn't believe your daughter. You chose to believe him instead, without even asking me, without even one phone call to hear my side. I was wrong. Yes, you were. Can you forgive me? Maeve studied her mother, saw the hope in her eyes, the need for absolution. No, Maeve said simply. I can't. You abandoned me when I needed you most. You told everyone I was a thief. You were ashamed of me without ever questioning whether it was true. That's not something I can forgive. Maeve, I'm your mother. You were my mother. Now you're just someone who shares my DNA. Please leave. Fiona's face crumpled, but she turned and left without another word. That was harsh, Harlow said quietly. That was honest. She made her choice 3 years ago. She doesn't get to unmake it now that I've been vindicated. Don't you think you'll regret it? Not having your mother in your life. I regret that she wasn't the mother I needed her to be, but I don't regret cutting out people who proved they can't be trusted. That's not cruelty, it's self-preservation. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then recognized the federal detention center prefix. Ms. Callahan. The voice was unfamiliar. This is Warden Davies at Ridgefield. I'm calling about your father. What about him? He's been placed in solitary confinement for his own protection. Several inmates have threatened him, apparently. Some of them had relatives who lost their pensions to Meridian. And he's requesting that you advocate for his transfer to a minimum security facility. No. Ms. Callahan, his life could be in danger. Then he should have thought about that before he destroyed 30,000 lives. He made his choices. Now he lives with the consequences. She hung up. 6 months later, the lake house stood exactly as Maeve remembered it from childhood, 3 stories of glass, and would nestled into the North Carolina mountains, overlooking a private lake that sparkled in the afternoon sun. She'd spent summers here once, back when she thought her father was a good man and the world made sense. Now it was hers. I still can't believe Brennan just signed it over, Harlow said, carrying boxes from the truck. He didn't have a choice, Maeve replied. It was this or federal prison. Trading property for immunity was the smartest thing he ever did. The house had been stripped of its expensive furniture and art, all sold to pay restitution, but Maeve didn't mind. She preferred it empty, ready to be filled with something better than the lies it once held. Lennox Creed pulled up the long driveway, getting out of his government sedan with a thick folder. Final paperwork, he said, handing it over. Roderick's sentence was confirmed on appeal. 25 years, no possibility of parole for 15. Good. Meridian's dissolution is complete. Assets have been distributed to creditors and victims. Every one of those 30,000 pensioners has been made whole with interest. Better. And he smiled. Glass House Consulting has been approved as an official contractor for the Justice Department. We'll be sending you cases directly. Best news all day. They stood on the deck, looking out over the lake. The sun was setting, painting the water gold and red. You know, Creed said, most people in your position would be angry, bitter, focused on personal revenge. I got my revenge, Maeve said. I destroyed everything he built. I took his money, his freedom, his legacy. His name will forever be associated with greed and failure. That's better revenge than anything personal could be. And you're not bitter. Bitter suggests I'm still holding on to something. I'm not. I cut out the cancer Roderick, my mother, everyone who failed me, and moved on. I'm building something better now. Harlow joined them on the deck, carrying 3 beers. They clinked bottles and drank in comfortable silence. What's that? Creed asked, pointing to the wall visible through the glass doors. Maeve smiled. Come see. They walked inside to the living room. Above the fireplace, in an expensive gold frame that had once held a portrait of Roderick, was a photograph from the wedding. The exact moment his champagne glass fell, shattering on the marble floor, his face frozen in shock as his world collapsed. That's cold, Creed said. That's justice, Maeve corrected. Every morning, I want to remember that moment. The moment when 30,000 people got their lives back. The moment when corruption met consequence. The moment when I won. And you're happy with how it ended. Maeve thought about it. Her father was in prison. Her mother was in Texas, cut from her life. She'd lost her innocence, her trust, her belief in family. But she'd gained something more. Purpose, power, the ability to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. I'm not happy, she said finally. Happy is for people who can afford to forget. But I'm satisfied. I did what needed to be done. What's next? Harlow asked. Maeve pulled out a folder from her bag. Remember that pharmaceutical company you mentioned? The one falsifying drug trials. Yeah. They're killing people, covering up side effects that include organ failure. The FDA doesn't know because they're submitting fake data. Jesus. The executive in charge is Richard Blackwood. He'll be at a charity gala next month. Black tie, $5,000 a plate, proceeds going to children's cancer research. The irony, Harlow muttered. I've already got us tickets. You'll be my +1. Creed, we'll need federal support when we're ready to move. You'll have it. Maeve raised her beer. To Glass House Consulting. We throw stones at glass houses and watch them shatter. They toasted as the sun set over the lake, painting everything in shades of gold and shadow. In the distance, a bird called out across the water, sharp and clear and unforgiving, just like justice should be. The photograph above the fireplace caught the last ray of sunlight, illuminating Roderick's shocked face one more time before darkness fell. Maeve looked at it and felt nothing but satisfaction. She'd won. Completely. Without mercy, without forgiveness, without compromise. And tomorrow, she'd do it again.